Hello friends, I am Arpit and I am here with today's analysis. Today is 19th of January and we are going to deal with two very important topics which are in news. The China-Taiwan relations. These relations are into picture because the Democratic Progressive Party in Taiwan, which happens to be a pro-democratic party or pro-democracy party, has come into power again. Since it is pro-democratic party, so it is anti-China. China, on the other hand, pursues the 1992 consensus, which calls for one China policy. One China means Taiwan is part of China. But this particular party rejects this 1992 consensus and says that the Taiwanese consensus is above the 1992 consensus, which simply means that the people of Taiwan do not recognize themselves as part of China. Another development over here we need to consider is small island countries. They have stopped recognizing Taiwan and started recognizing China now. Why? Because of China's deep pockets and willingness to invest in the infrastructure projects in those small island countries. Nauru is the latest among them. The second is Iran-Pakistan conflict and what is at stake for India. Day before yesterday, Iran fired on Pakistan. Yesterday, Pakistan retaliated and fired back on Iran. Both of their logics was that we are not firing against the country, but yes, we are firing against some terrorist outfits. These terrorist outfits are there in the Baloch region, which spans through both of these countries, that is Iran and Pakistan. The Baloch region, which is already very fragile, sometimes undergoverned and ungoverned, may lead to more escalation of the conflict and this can be spilled over into South Asia from West Asia. Since it will be spilled into South Asia, India definitely will be impacted because it is the big brother over here. Another complication with this issue is the presence of China in the Baloch region of Pakistan via its Gwadar port, which is part of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. This can further complicate the situation. India largely, as of now, had refrained from the conflict in West Asia and established this strategic balance. But India will have to rethink its positions if the spillover of this impact or this spillover of this, I would say, war happens or impacts South Asia. So, we need to understand things in this way. Now, China-Taiwan relations, the first topic. Why we are studying this? Because the Democratic Progressive Party of Taiwan, which happens to be a pro-democratic party, anti-China party, has come to power again. And obviously, difficult times for China in Taiwan. Lai Ching-te has become the president of Taiwan. He was the vice president under Tsai Ing-wen, the former president of Taiwan. And this lady, Tsai Ing-wen, has been defined as or marked as a troublemaker by China. Now, this is a third term for DPP, with the win being perceived as major blow to China. But one development which we need to understand here is a small island nation, Nauru, has announced that it is shifting its relations from Taipei to Beijing. Actually, we need to understand one thing. The technical name for China is People's Republic of China and for Taiwan is Republic of China, ROC. How they got these names? There's history to it, and let's get into the history first. Then only we will understand this Nauru shifting its base from Taipei to Beijing. So it was basically mid or I would say 1940s decade. In that decade, China was divided under multiple rules of various warlords. There was no unified polity or no unified rule. Power was not consolidated in China. And hence, two entities. One, the Communist Army, and second, the Republican Army. They collectively decided to consolidate power in China. Mind you, they were not rivals of each other during the 1940s when they decided to consolidate power, but they were complementing each other. And by the end of 1940s, when the power was consolidated, it was found that the Communist Army consolidated more power than the Republican Army. So, Communist Army wanted its ways to prevail in China. And what were the ways of Communist Army? They wanted to establish China as a communist country with very, very little form of democracy. Whereas on the other hand, the Republican Army wanted to establish liberal democracy with capitalism as the norm in China. But, Communist Army, largely dominant, shifted the Republican Army to a small island in its eastern side. That island was named as Formosa Island, Barmosa Island, or popularly now known as Taiwan. So, this was basically the issue. This is that island, Taiwan. This is mainland China, we call it. This mainland China, established by the communist army headed by none other than Mao Zedong, was named as People's Republic of China. Whereas this island or Taiwan was named as ROC. It was established by none other than Republican Army. Now, some countries recognized PRC as China. Some countries recognized ROC as China. A notable fact here is that the United Nations until 1972 recognized ROC, that is Taiwan, as China, and it is after 1972 only when United Nations recognized PRC as China. Which China did India recognize? Actually, India became the first non-communist country to recognize PRC. We recognized the mainland China, the communist China, as China, not Taiwan. So, this is basically the story. Now, coming to this, it says that, Nauru, a small island nation, has announced that it is shifting its relations from Taipei to Beijing. Means just like United Nations, earlier United Nations recognized ROC or Taipei or Taiwan as China, and after 1972 it recognized PRC or Beijing or mainland China as China or the communist China as China. Similarly, now Nauru, a small island country, has done this. Earlier it had recognized Taiwan as China. Now it is recognizing PRC, that is People's Republic of China, as China. Are there more countries like Nauru who have shifted base from ROC to PRC or from Taiwan to communist China or the mainland China? Yes, there are. Now, today there are only 11 countries which recognize Taiwan, while in 2016 there were 22 such countries. So, one among these 22 countries which went from here to here is Nauru. There are 10 more than Nauru. So, a number of countries have shifted diplomatic relations from Taipei to Beijing during the previous Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen's term in office. Beijing has lured smaller nations with the promise of financial investment and infrastructure development. That is why these island nations are recognizing Beijing as compared to Taipei. Can Taipei meet the, I would say, deep pockets of China or PRC? Obviously not. China has the world's largest forex reserves, which is, I would say, something which needs to be considered, and China's policy of Belt and Road Initiative is also, I would say, gaining momentum by these kind of activities. Now, since Tsai and DPP came to power in 2016, the diplomatic space for Taiwan has consistently reduced. But they have won the elections. Why? Because they are promoting this thing in Taiwan that people are not recognizing us, people are recognizing PRC as China. Let them recognize, because we distance ourselves from China. We are Taiwan. That is our unique identity or a separate identity, and this is something which is resonating well with among the masses of Taiwan, particularly the youth. The 1992 consensus. Let us understand about this as well. Now, China says, or China recognizes or gives too much emphasis on the 1992 consensus. What was this consensus? This consensus was claiming that China is one China, or the one China policy. Means mainland China is China. Taiwan is also part of China, PRC. That was the 1992 consensus. Then this 1992 consensus is refused by the DPP, Tsai, the ex-president. Now, what is 1992 consensus? It acknowledges that there is a one China. It was agreed upon between the Kuomintang. Kuomintang was that political party in Taiwan in 1992 which acknowledged this. It was a pro-status quo party. Pro-status quo means pro-past, means where Taiwan is considered part of China, and the Communist Party of China. So between Kuomintang and Communist Party of China, this 1992 consensus was signed. However, Ms. Tsai has publicly said that this consensus goes against the Taiwanese consensus. What is the Taiwanese consensus? Means there has been a rise in Taiwanization, which simply means the younger generation of Taiwan do not feel attached with China and they want their separate identity, that is the identity of Taiwan. So, the younger generation of Taiwan do not feel any historical affinity with China. This generation recognizes itself as Taiwanese and have grown up in a democratic political environment. So, this is basically it. Then, the China angle. What does China say? All these developments have intensified aggressiveness towards Taiwan by China. China is clear of this viewpoint that bhai, Taiwan is part of China and we are going to make it. In this year's New Year address, Mr. Xi Jinping, the president of China, said that reunification with Taiwan is inevitable. Means this will happen and Taiwan is a sacred territory. However, he did not give a timeline that when Taiwan will be unified with China. With the recent tensions going on all across the world, this can also be another tension which can pop up. And if this tension pops up, USA will definitely come in support of Taiwan. This USA has done in the past also. USA can do it now also. And again, another conflict can start in the vicinity of India. This is something which is actually worrisome. So, this is basically the scene. Then democracy in Taiwan. How is the democracy in Taiwan? Is it quite liberal? Yes, it is quite liberal. Now, it is generally believed, Mr. Shashi Tharoor has written in his book Pax Indica that when the Chinese travelers or the Chinese tourists, they visit Taiwan, their favorite time pass in Taiwan is to sit in their hotel rooms and watch the debates on the news channels in Taiwan. The debates signify freedom of speech and expression, which is largely absent in China. These kind of debates do not happen in the mainland China or PRC. That is something which is mentioned by Mr. Tharoor in his book. But yes, Taiwan, known for its liberal democracy, started its democratic story, or the first democratic elections in 1996 were conducted. I don't know what took so long for these elections to get conducted from 1949. But yes, from 1996 onwards, the graph of democracy has gone up, up and up, means democracy has strengthened itself. Despite the fact that China is not wanting democracy over there. The elections happened under the shadow of Chinese ire, with missiles being fired across the Taiwan Straits. But since then, democracy has only strengthened and regularized. Why is China uncomfortable with Taiwan's democracy? Beijing has been uncomfortable with Taiwanese democracy as it considers the island as a renegade province. Renegade province means part of China. And in China, there is one political party, that is Communist Party of China. No other political party exists because it is a one-party polity. But here in Taiwan, Kuomintang, a pro-status quo party, then DPP, the party which is in power presently, it is a pro-democratic party. It clearly dilutes that one-party norm in China. Apart from it, China's democratic ideals, very minimal they are, and they promote excessive liberal democracy. The fact that Taiwan has a functioning democracy strengthens the idea of a separate Taiwanese political identity, which is in complete contrast to the one-party system in China. It also challenges the notion that the CPC is the only political option for the Chinese people, since there is only one party over there. Now, democracy established in Taiwan, regular elections happening over there, liberal democracy is there, gives Taiwan a separate identity as well. And this separate identity with Taiwan actually distinguishes it from China, which China obviously does not want. 1992 consensus, don't forget, one China. China wants to be part of, or Taiwan, China wants to make Taiwan part of China. This year's New Year, I would say, speech of Mr. Xi Jinping, reunification of Taiwan into China. So this is something which is disturbing. Now the Iran-Pakistan conflict, India's stake in this. Pakistan has now retaliated. In yesterday's video, we saw that why Iran attacked Pakistan because of that terrorist outfit, a Sunni terrorist outfit, Jaish al-Abd. Now, Pakistan has retaliated and attacked Iran, citing that it has attacked terror forces which are a threat to Pakistan. The terror forces, Baloch Liberation Force, Baloch Liberation Army. Actually, this region Balochistan, let's suppose this is the border, this is Pakistan, this is Iran. The Baloch region spans through both of these countries. This province is known as Sistan Balochistan province of Iran. This province is known as Balochistan province of Pakistan. And Baloch forces are restive for Pakistan, means they are anti-Pakistan. They have created a long-term destability in Pakistan, and Pakistan believes one more thing, that India has taken advantage of this situation. India has promoted Baloch a lot to cause instability in Pakistan. But let's see. Now, this is making conflict more intense and the situation more complicated in West Asia. It is also spilling over it in South Asia, since Pakistan is part of South Asia. In South Asia, there are 8 countries largely considered: Pakistan, Afghanistan, India, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Maldives. So, with this conflict spilling over in Pakistan, we can say that, South Asia is also now part of this particular conundrum. Whether they want it or not, India, Pakistan, and Afghanistan will now be drawn deeper into the vortex of turbulent Middle East. This has been written by Mr. C. Raja Mohan in the Indian Express, and he has explained, or he has given the reasons that why it would be inevitable for countries like India and Afghanistan to enter into the conflict now. 5 broad trends in security interdependence have come to the fore. Now, what are these 5 broad trends? We will see. First is the tragedy of Baloch minorities. Baloch people, this darker portion which you are seeing over here in this map, this is basically the Iran and Pakistan border. Now, this dark portion which you are seeing over here is the Baloch region. The Baloch people live over here. And this particular port, Gwadar, which you are seeing over here, this Gwadar port, Chinese have presence on. It is further complicating the situation due to Chinese presence. Now, attacks by Iran happened over here. We saw it yesterday. Now by Pakistan over here in this Baloch province only. Sistan Balochistan province of Iran. So, these Baloch people, they have straddled across Pakistan and Iran and are now targets of the attacks by both these countries. Now, dissident Baloch groups with genuine grievances against both states take shelter across the Pak-Iran border and intensify the security dilemmas of both the countries. Now, since these people are there with, I would say, cultural similarities, or they belong to the same ethnic group, these borders are also not so strong, I would say. They have frequent ties, and I would say violation of borders and all is there. Now, with this situation coming into picture, these borders can further become weak, and hence, many I would say things can start on this border. Now, Baloch territory can lead to other problems. The dissident groups are caught up in regional power politics between the Arabs, Israelis, and Iranians. The ungoverned and undergoverned spaces in the Baloch lands provide fertile grounds for problems like smuggling, narcotics trafficking, and cross-border political militancy backed by third parties. Now, these are the other problems which can start, and these problems can intensify the spillover of this particular conflict in South Asia. Particularly, India can also be impacted due to this. Let's suppose there are rebels who have stationed themselves in the ungoverned and undergoverned Baloch region, irrespective, Iran or Pakistan Baloch, and they've started attacking Indian naval ships carrying the Indian cargo, or carrying the trade items to India. So definitely India will have to intervene. Militant activities intensify, and those militant activities are targeting India. India will have to intervene. So with all these things, this spillover effect can also be experienced by India. India has already stationed multiple warships in the Arabian Sea region. And let's see what happens. Then third is the Chinese adding to the complications. Gwadar port, I've already showed it to you. Now this Balochistan's geopolitical location, it is at the mouth of oil-rich Gulf, and this location is complicated by Beijing's strategic presence in Gwadar, one of the critical nodes of much touted China-Pakistan economic corridor. Gwadar port is part of CPEC, and CPEC is considered one of the flagship programs of Belt and Road Initiative. Last September's visit to Gwadar by David Blom. David Blom is the US ambassador to Pakistan. Now he visited Gwadar where Chinese presence is. USA ambassador visiting over there, leading to this another complication over there. That is, it triggered speculation about Balochistan's significance in deepening rivalry between USA and China. So this can further complicate the issue, which obviously is not wanted. Afghanistan angle. Afghanistan and Iran have long had their share of problems, particularly since when the Taliban has come into power. Why? Because, there are conflicts over religious ideologies, minority rights, border management, and sharing trans-border rivers, among others. So, Taliban regime is also not lenient towards Pakistan, neither it is lenient towards Iran. It has its own stand. And this non-leniency stand of Taliban regime in Afghanistan is creating problems between Iran and Taliban. So as it is written that the problems have intensified, particularly after Taliban has taken over Afghanistan. That happened in 2021. The Taliban government in Kabul has demonstrated considerable assertiveness in dealing with Pakistan. It will be surprising if they do not seize the possibility of inserting itself into the Gulf to win new friends and expand its influence. Afghanistan, since it is having problems with Pakistan and Iran both, there are chances that the Taliban regime will indulge into the rivals or with the rivals of Iran in West Asia. And who are the rivals of Iran? Saudi Arabia, or I would say UAE. Israel is also a rival of Iran, but it is very less likely that Afghanistan is going to engage with Israel. These new friends of Taliban will be Saudi Arabia and UAE. Israel, I don't think so, which is a rival of Iran, which I don't think so Taliban will go there. But yes, Taliban can earn these new friends in West Asia, bringing Afghanistan also into the picture. Now, what is at stake for India? The fragility of the Balochistan connections, or the Balochistan region connecting South Asia and the Gulf, China's strategic presence over there in Balochistan through the Gwadar port, Beijing's growing role in the Gulf are deep concerns to India. Beijing's growing role in the Gulf, Beijing means China struck a peace deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia in 2023. And now both of these are fighting with each other. They are at conflicts with each other. And, all these things are of deep concern. India has traditionally stayed neutral in the conflict within the Middle East. India has actually struck a balance. This triangle of West Asia, which we frequently use. On one side is the Sunnis Sunnis are Saudi Arabia, UAE, Egypt, and all. On one side is the Shias, that is Iran, and on the other side is the Jews, that is Israel. India has struck a strategic balance, has maintained good relations with all in this West Asian region, and has stayed neutral in the conflict. But it might find increasingly hard to do as India's economic and security stakes rise in the volatile Middle East, because India's cargo traffic has been impacted by the developments in Red Sea. This can further be impacted. The militant outfits in the AFPAC region, which are targeting India, can also go in that region and impact. Inevitably, India will have to intervene then. That is going to be, I would say, India's involvement in the conflict, which can probably happen also. India's clear stand against terrorism, its close ties with Israel, and its deeper engagement with Saudi Arabia and UAE are all new elements of New Delhi's Middle East policy. But if this happens, we've stayed neutral in the war, we've had good relations with every faction in West Asia. But if India's economic and strategic interests are hampered, then India will have to retaliate, India will have to get into the war. Now, in the colonial era, the undivided subcontinent, where Pakistan was part of this British India, this undivided subcontinent played a key role in shaping the security and political order in the Gulf. After independence and partition, Pakistan claimed some of that role because Pakistan became a sovereign country. Pakistan was having its relations with the world according to itself. And during the Cold War period, it brought in USA into this region because Pakistan had good relations with, I would say, USA. But today, a weakened Pakistan could increasingly become part of the widening conflict theater in the Gulf. And since Pakistan is weakened, it may bring, or there are more chances of other stronger countries coming in the conflict and making the conflict more complicated. I'm talking about none other than China. Now, if Pakistan would have been strong enough, it would have dealt it by its own. But since Pakistan has become weak now, so it becomes inevitable for third party countries to come and meddle in the affairs, which can further complicate the situation. The cross border attacks between Iran and Pakistan point to a changing region that will demand India to rethink many of its past assumptions about the security in the Middle East. That strategic balance which we had struck, we will need to rethink of that. An arch rival of India, Pakistan, is directly involved in the conflict now, which may have certain implications on India, certain negative implications which we don't want actually. So, with this, we end today's session, and I will be meeting you tomorrow now with more such informative news pieces. Till then, you guys very well know what to do. Keep studying, keep reading, keep writing, and most importantly, keep revising. Namaste. Jai Hind.